So hello everybody, and thank you for joining us today to this webinar. I would like to invite Shlomi Kaufman, VP International Collaboration at the Israel Innovation Authority, to say a few opening remarks. Shlomi, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Fat, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining. Just want to be brief and express, first of all, our appreciation to MTEC for your friendship, for your strong friendship for many years, for collaboration, for already having Israeli companies and Israeli technologies, and for being here to share and to talk about what lies ahead and what are the opportunities. I think as you already experienced, as you know, the technologies coming out for Israel and the opportunities here are great, and the Israelis are providing and can provide the best technologies that we can even think of. And especially these days, this webinar and this opportunity that you're going to talk about is crucially important. So I want to thank you for being with us, and I look forward to exploring our collaboration even further. So thank you so much. Thank you, Fat.
Thank you, Shlomi. And I would like to invite Dr. Chuck Hattie, biomedical research associate at MTEC. Chuck, the floor is yours.
Yes. So hi, everyone. My name is Dr. Chuck Huddy. I'm a biomedical research associate with MTEC, the Medical Technology Enterprise Consortium. I'm very happy to be speaking today. Thank you so much for the invitation. If you do have any questions, please feel free to submit them in the Q&A function. I'm happy to take any of the questions as you come about them. I know it's a webinar meeting at the moment, so there may not be as much direct face-to-face communication, but I'm happy to take questions either through here, or feel free to reach out to me at my email that's listed here and at the end of the PowerPoint should you have any questions. I think also, just to preface, this slide deck I think is going to be available afterwards, so definitely feel free to reach out should you want access to that slide deck. So as I said, I'm a biomedical research associate with MTEC. MTEC itself is a consortium that operates under the Other Transaction Agreement. So this is an alternative methodology that the government uses to distribute funding across its various extramural sources. We were founded about 7 or 8 years ago, with 4 companies coming together to help the government utilize that Other Transaction Agreement. Since then, we've grown to have over a dozen military sponsors, some of them that you can see here on the left, as they're all providing or telling us what their priorities are, and we're helping them craft solicitations to find solutions to those priorities. The goal of MTEC is really for these government agencies to be able to work with anyone, including small businesses, companies from other countries such as Israel, or even larger industries as well. But all of those should be providing those novel, innovative technologies that will end up helping and saving and preventing injury for warfighters and veterans. There are a few benefits for the Other Transaction Agreement. I can briefly talk about them. One of the biggest benefits, and you can kind of see all 3 of these are pretty much in the same category of more open communication. Really, the Other Transaction Agreement allows for the military sponsor to be able to communicate clearly with potential offers and really explain what they're looking for and give some guidance on how people might be able to set up proposals. With that, we've also been able to tap into our larger membership to provide a lot of teaming opportunities for people to continue developing their technologies. One of the other benefits, as I mentioned, is access to novel solutions from anywhere, expanding that aperture of innovation for the military to really look for novel technologies, even if it's in small businesses, foreign companies, or in academic situations. So as I was saying, there's definitely several key benefits of the Other Transaction Agreement, from more open communication to the ability to work with anyone in the world, to the ease of modifying awards further down. So if the military really likes working with an individual company, they can modify that contract very easily in the future to continue working with them. And over 50% of our awards do get follow-on funding from the government. Okay, did that move to the next slide?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Thank
Okay,
you.
we should be good now. So as I mentioned, we are a consortium. We're over 600 members strong. Most of those are small businesses providing those innovative, novel technologies that the government is looking for. We do have a number of academic organizations. One of the benefits of an academic organization being a member is that every lab and startup that comes out of that academic institution counts as a member for the purposes of applying for solicitation. So really, even though it says 100 here, it's many, many more offerers that are available through that network. We also do have some large industry partners that are members. Some of those are competing for awards, but most are actually looking at the companies that get on award, the projects that get on award, and seeing those as potential acquisition targets or teaming opportunities to further get those technologies to commercialization. So as MTEC has a quite broad view of the technology focus areas that we have, anything from military infectious disease to clinical rehabilitative medicine and more. I'll talk about a decent number of these in a minute as we talk about our open solicitation, which is our broadest of the year. But if you do have any questions regarding any of these topic areas, definitely feel free to reach out to me. So to date, we've put out over $990 million worth of non-dilutive funding across over 250 different awards. Those awards have also brought in an additional $100 million worth of cost share. So while cost share isn't required for small businesses to apply, it is always encouraged, and it does help that government dollar to stretch a little bit further and that technology to develop just that much more. So it's always appreciated. I'll briefly kind of go over the solicitation process as a whole. So generally, a military sponsor will come to me and say, hey, Chuck, I've got a specific priority, and I will help them craft a solicitation to find solutions that will meet that priority. We'll post that solicitation publicly. We'll host some public webinars where the military sponsor will come on and talk through any of those requirements, those technical requirements that they have. And then you, as offerers, have the ability to communicate with us through MTEC or to the military sponsor directly and ask questions. Once you feel like you have found a really good solicitation that you are offering a solution for, the priority that's listed there, you're able to craft a proposal, submit that proposal. The military sponsors will then evaluate those proposals, and then they can do one of three things. They can not approve your proposal, but no matter what they do, they will give you some feedback as to why. So you'll know what the strengths and the weaknesses of your proposals are, so that in future proposals, you can shore up those weaknesses and embolden those strengths so you can craft higher quality proposals. They could also approve your proposal for funding, and then MTEC will start working with you and the sponsor to craft a contract for that to be executed. Generally, we're looking at about a 4 to 5 month window for that process to happen. The third option is if a sponsor really likes your proposal, but they don't have funding at the current stage, that they can put your proposal into an electronic basket that MTEC manages. So once you're in the basket, you can be in the basket for up to 2 years. And at that point, any military sponsor can pull you out and start funding you. Again, once you get pulled out and we start working with you just like we did if you were approved. And that process, again, is about 4 to 5 months. This happens a lot during fiscal year turnover. So right now you might be familiar with what's going on in Congress, where the budgets haven't been finalized just yet. So while the topics that I'll be talking about in just a minute are all first of the fiscal year priorities, it's likely most of those projects that they want to put on award are going to be put into the basket first, while they wait for those budgets to be allocated, and then pull them out and start funding them afterwards. So the basket is a very good place to be as well. I'll briefly talk about some extra benefits that MTEC members have. Obviously, the biggest benefit is being able to propose for various solicitations. Membership fees are $1,000 per year, prorated by what calendar quarter you join. So right now it's $250. We do offer some additional benefits beyond just the solicitation. One is access to the MCOR. This is a network of subject matter experts that can help you provide solutions to your capability gaps that you might have, whether it's contracting, manufacturing, distribution, or clinical research. We have MCOR members that are able to assist with you continuing down that development pipeline and assist you with figuring out exactly what the next steps should be. We do offer some advanced commercialization opportunities as well. So we do provide some individual and targeted assistance to identify any market gaps or capability gaps that your organization has. We also can we have some educational webinars that we put on to help inform you about interactions with the FDA or with Congress or other educational pieces of information that you would need during development. We also do have some gap funding opportunities. So these funding opportunities are MTEC funded in order to get projects from where they are now to a point where they're ready for an MTEC award. So they're just a little bit too early for an MTEC award, and we can provide some gap funding for those kinds of projects. We also do have a number of investors that have been identified and are on a board to have quarterly pitch sessions presented to them. So we do set those up. If you're interested in the MTEC Ventures program, I'd be happy to connect you with our Chief Development Officer, Jill Sorensen, who can talk more about that. Okay, so we're going to get into the bulk of this meeting, and I'm going to try to go as quickly as possible. Our active solicitation is the 2401 MPI, the Military Prototype Advancement Initiative. It is our largest solicitation of the year. There are 40 topic areas here that I'm going to go through kind of briefly. Just for awareness, the solicitation proposals are due on January 15th, 2024 at noon Eastern Standard Time. And definitely feel free to look at the full solicitation on our website here. There are two important documents required for this solicitation. The first is that request for project proposals, that solicitation that I mentioned, that can be found on our website. The other is a proposal preparation guide. It has a few of the extra templates in it, and it can be found on our MTEC members only website. Again, January 15th due date. Very important to keep in mind. Let me briefly talk about some of the key aspects of the solicitation. So the acquisition approach for this solicitation, the proposals are called enhanced white papers. It's essentially everything you would include in a normal white paper, plus a period of performance schedule. So what deliverables would be expected at what points during the period of performance, and a rough order magnitude cost chart, so that the government sponsor has a clear idea about how the project is going to develop, but also how much it's going to cost. For funding availability and period of performance, we're really suggesting that you propose what you believe is reasonable and feasible for the scope of work that you are proposing. So generally our awards are around 2 to 3 million and 2 to 3 years for the period of performance, but it could be more depending on exactly what the scope of work is. It also could be less, obviously. There are going to be some unique requirements for each of the focus areas, so please review the RPP in detail to make sure that you have all the information you need. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. I'd be happy to take your questions and get you the answers you need. For the proposal evaluation, there is some evaluation criteria that can be found in Section 5 of the RPP. Each of the proposals will receive feedback, but we are looking at about probably 200 to 250 different proposals being submitted. So it will be relatively limited feedback from the sponsors, but you will still know what some of the strengths and weaknesses of your proposal are. You will have to submit using the bids platform, and you can find some more information on how to submit using the proposal preparation guide that I mentioned. And just to kind of give a brief overview of what kind of technologies we're looking at, we're really looking at, so MTEC operates under a prototype other transaction agreement. So it means that we have to have at least some sort of experimental proof of concept for any project that is funded. Generally, our projects are awarding within the TRL 4 to 7 range, the technology readiness level 4 to 7. So that's validations, preclinical, clinical, FDA clearance, that kind of range of technology development. Again, I can talk about this in more detail if you have any questions. But I do want to kind of briefly go through these topics just because it is, I know we're getting a little late on time already. So focus area 1.1 is blood product development. Really, there's a shortage of FDA cleared blood products that the military can use. We're really looking for products that are able to support the warfighter and actually get through FDA clearance. So, blood and blood products anywhere from hemostatics, oxygen carriers, combination treatments, things like that. Focus area 1.2. And I will say, again, if you have any questions on any of these, please post them in the Q&A function, and I would be happy to answer them after we get through all these. Focus area 1.2 is anti-shock pharmacology. So it's really looking for drugs to mitigate the pathophysiology associated with hemorrhagic shock, and therapy should address metabolic acidosis, mitochondrial dysfunction, or trauma-induced coagulopathies. 1.3 is battlefield pain control, looking for some novel solutions to manage acute battlefield pain. The key part of this one is devoid of performance-limiting side effects, so as cognitive sparing as possible, as non-addictive as possible. That's what we're really looking for. Focus area 1.4 is organ support devices and therapeutics, so novel technologies to optimize current technologies and provide renal support or treat ischemia reperfusion in severely injured casualties. And I will kind of mention this is true for pretty much all of these focus areas, is that we are looking for decreased size, weight, and power as needed in a military setting. So that's kind of a true thought across the board. Focus area 1.5 is surgical support devices. So we're looking for the ability to extend surgical capabilities and enable surgical procedures at roles 2 and 3. So increase surgical capacities, decrease swap requirements, that size, weight, and power, and improved mobility for surgical teams. Focus area 1.6, this is complex wound management. Obviously, this is going to be a very broad topic, looking for therapies to manage several traumas, including complex soft tissue trauma, open fractures, penetrating torso, blast injuries, delays in care from penetrating abdominal injuries, or prevention management from deep space infections. Focus area 1.7 is burn wound recovery. So again, also a broad topic, but looking for the ability to treat both deep, partial, and full thickness burns. Specifically, if we can apply this treatments early on and reduce the need for follow-on medical care. Focus area 1.8 is en route care. So advanced methods or solutions that enable high volume or prolonged patient movement. We're talking about not just treating people at an individual point, but when they are in transit, either via ambulance or on plane. Focus area 1.9, autonomous care and evacuation. This is a bit different than the rest of the ones that we were talking about. The rest are really looking for individual product development. This is looking for a AI ML algorithm that can take a bunch of inputs, including where individual medics are, what supplies are available, whether that's blood or bandages, and then kind of put together a triage scenario for what medic should go to what patient with what supplies in order to treat that patient, and then optimally move to the next one. So it's really more of a battlefield triage management system that we're looking for here. Focus area 1.10 is semi-autonomous procedural support. So this is, AI or robotic technology that can assist surgical tasks being done in the field. Focus area 1.11, military-civilian partnerships for trauma. So we're really looking for established military-civilian partnerships that are focused on training or sustainment of military personnel, and then expanding their capabilities or evaluating the ability for that partnership to function so that we could transplant that blueprint to another military-civilian partnership in the future as well. So focus area 1.12 has two sub-focus areas, but both of them are studies in Ukraine. This is definitely a hot topic, as the war in Ukraine could abate at any time. So we're really trying to find products that are able to be tested within those war zone environments. One of the key aspects of both of these sub-focus areas is going to be having buy-in from the Ukrainian individuals or organizations, whether that's hospitals or the Ukrainian military. For focus area 1.12.1, it's specifically looking for clinical trial capabilities in Ukraine. So building those clinical trial capabilities and implementing a pilot program within Ukraine. Again, buy-in from the Ukrainian military or Ukrainian hospitals is key for this. The focus area 1.12.2 is evaluating casualty care technologies in Ukraine. So we're really looking for evaluating those casualty care technologies for evaluation of utility, ease of use, compatibility, clinical outcomes, and recommendations for optimizing those technologies. Moving on, so the first section is actually, you might have seen a common trend about casualty care. So those are all being funded out of the Combat Casualty Care Research Program from the Medical Research and Development Command out of Fort Detrick in the US. The next couple sections, or the next section for all the focus area 2.x, is going to be funded by military infectious disease. So there's going to be a common theme of infectious disease in these next sections. So the first is prophylactic to prevent infection battlefield wounds from complex traumatic penetrating wounds in a far forward austere environment. Title pretty much says it all. Specifically looking at conforming to a three-dimensional wound shape, self-absorbable or easily removable using wound irrigation, and has to be effective against at least one of these high priority pathogens. Focus area 2.2, pathogen agnostic countermeasures for the treatment of sepsis caused by wound infection. Again, the title says a lot of it. I will say that toxicity data from the FDA, if required by the FDA, is going to be preferred. And any preclinical data is highly encouraged to submit. Focus area 2.3, antivirals for the prevention and or treatment of endemic or emerging infectious diseases. So really looking for broadly acting antivirals that can be active against the Bunnyvirilis order or the dengue virus family. Sorry, sometimes it's early in the morning for me and my tongue gets a little tied. Focus area 2.4 is pathogen or prevention of endemic diarrheal diseases. So really looking for any prophylactics for endemic viral diarrheal diseases. There is a focus on norovirus, but we can expand it beyond norovirus as well. Again, preclinical efficacy data or toxicity data would be great to include if it's available. Focus area 2.5 is looking for knowledge product solutions for the prevention of infectious traumatic penetrating wounds. So really there's a few focus areas here, but they all revolve around increasing the knowledge on how we develop countermeasures to infectious diseases and pathogens, and trying to figure out exactly what should be needed with a new development that's going forward. So definitely take a look through these, and let me know if you have questions. Focus area 3.1. So now we're into focus area 3.x area. So all of these are going to center around military operational medicine. So the first is individual occupation and exposure or environmental exposure monitoring. So again, we're really looking for the ability to have a physiological sensor technology that can monitor an individual's occupational or environmental exposures. It's written pretty broadly because there's a lot of different exposures that could be relevant, and we're interested to see what kind of technologies you have available that could meet that broad language. Focus area 3.2, advanced research using multi-enclave AI analytics and biomedical readiness for formation-centric military performance. The title says a lot of it, but really we're looking for an AI model that is able to synthesize medical readiness data that the military is tracking and put it through an algorithm in order to determine whether an individual is ready for military combat or if they should go back to either retrain or rest at a garrison, things like that. Focus area 3.3, understanding tinnitus. The next 5 or so are all going to be about neurosensory trauma and fixing that. So obviously tinnitus is a very understood topic. And so we're really looking for either knowledge products or technologies that are able to help us understand tinnitus or prevent it or treat it. Obviously, again, a pretty broad topic. Focus area 3.4, leveraging medical health data for neurosensory injury prevention and treatment strategies. So again, looking at the medical health data that is available, specifically in neurosensory health data, and trying to figure out exactly if there's any patterns or different associations that could govern neurosensory injuries and inform prevention and treatment strategies in the future. Focus area 3.5, hearing protection communication. Obviously, hearing protection is going to be incredibly important for neurosensory injury prevention. And so we're really looking for next-gen hearing protection devices and the development of those. And there's 3 different goals here, so definitely look through whether you might be a short-term goal where you already have a product that's in development and you just need to evaluate its performance in a military operational relevant scenario. Midterm, where you're still developing that technology, or even long-term, where you're really looking at what kind of things need to be taken into consideration when developing a hearing protection device. Focus area 3.6, brain-computer interface translation. So really looking for brain-computer interface prototypes that can stimulate part of the visual pathway, such as the retina, optic nerve, or visual cortices, and generate visual perceptions. So yeah, definitely looking to fund a human study or clinical trial here. Focus area 3.7, temporary corneal repair. So obviously this is ocular injuries are common within the battlefield, and so having the ability to treat and regenerate a soldier specifically that is suffering from cornea damage using a temporary corneal repair could be very valuable. And so there are some short, mid, and long-term goals within this individual focus area. So if you're interested in temporary corneal repair, please read through and let me know if you have any questions. Focus area 3.8 is psychological health, including psychological disorder treatment. So we've moved away from neurosensory, and now we're getting into a bunch of psychological health and human performance topics. So really looking for a digital health suite of tools that can monitor and manage the care of individuals that are suffering from behavioral or psychological health issues. There's quite a few requirements here, as you can see here, as well as on the next page. definitely please read through these in detail. I think probably true for most of the psychological health community. This last bullet is going to be of most importance, in having a letter of support from a commanding officer to state access to an active duty service member population. We've seen from previous psychological health studies that are done on veteran communities that those studies, the data that's collected from there, doesn't always translate well to a military population, an active duty military population. And so having at least 40% of your study being an active duty member or service member population can really help improve the ability for those data to translate well to the active duty population. And so even if you don't have access here, if you are working within psychological health and you're looking for U.S. military funding, this is something that is probably going to be required going forward. So definitely, starting to make some of those connections within the U.S. military bases can be really helpful to get access to those active duty populations. Focus area 3.9, objective behavioral health assessment and monitoring. So for this one specifically, looking at non-invasive assessment and monitoring of behavioral health related conditions and symptoms, including depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, acute stress reactions, acute stress disorder, pain, somatic symptoms. All of these are really looking for a way for you to monitor the behavioral and psychological health of a military individual, specifically in field. If you can use AI/ML, that'd be preferred. But yeah, if you have any questions, let me know. Focus area 3.10, effective scalable treatments for full remission. So we're looking for treatments that can maximize the potential for full remission of PTSD. Again, there's quite a lot of requirements here, and that, I think on this next page, no, there wasn't. Okay, never mind. But definitely feel free to look through them. Definitely that, the access to that U.S. military population is going to be important as well for this one. Focus area 3.11 is postventions for suicide. So developing solutions that can be applied after someone has attempted suicide and preventing the next suicide. That's going to be very important here. Highly important for the military. As you can see from this slide and the next one, there are quite a few requirements. So, definitely those active duty service member populations, like I mentioned, are very important for these kinds of studies. Focus area 3.2, cross-cutting prevention. So cross-cutting is, various harmful behaviors that a military person could be experiencing or conducting after stressful environments, including suicide, sexual assault or violence, ostracization, domestic abuse, alcohol or substance abuse. All of those are of interest, and treatments for those behaviors are of interest. Again, lots of requirements for this one as well. Focus area 3.13, musculoskeletal injury prevention and treatment, really looking for some specific solutions for the priorities that are listed here, anywhere between screening and assessment tools, imaging devices and objective assessment tools, biological drug therapies that can speed recovery, or solutions to implement training programs for warfighter health and fitness. Focus area 3.14 and 3.15 are actually quite similar. There is a research group out of the Aeronautics Research Laboratories in the US that is looking for a partner that can work on a musculoskeletal injury model to help them do some in silico tests that would be advance and continued development of that musculoskeletal model in conjunction with some in vivo tests that they do on large animal models or cadavers. So really, we're looking for the development of a musculoskeletal injury model, a computer model for that. This, for focus area 3.13, it's specifically looking at head-supported mass injuries. And for focus area 3.15, we're looking at human head injuries from high-rate localized blunt impacts. So if you're interested in musculoskeletal injury modeling, please reach out, let me know. Okay, moving on to focus area 4.1, and again, we're at 4.x, so we've moved on into some priorities from the U.S. Air Force. They have some priorities regarding musculoskeletal injury prevention and treatment, specifically for aircrew and maintainers. Again, this is a pretty broad topic. They're looking for a number of different solutions here. Anywhere from, preventing, screening, reducing, diagnosing musculoskeletal injury. Focus area 4.2, aerospace physiology. Again, this is also a very broad topic, anywhere between solutions for physiological assessments, the physiological response to exposure and stressors from fight trainer environments, including, fluctuations in their environment from pressure, O2, etc. Also, there is looking for cross-compatible systems for collecting physiological data, and even conducting some comprehensive technical assessments of the current military health simulators that can monitor and track physiological data. Focus area 4.3 is carcinogens. This is all about detection, identification, and a little bit of removal of carcinogens. But establishing guidelines for carcinogen exposure, developing prototypes to identify the carcinogen toxins or exposure levels. All of that is of interest. Focus area 4.4, precision medicine and medical standards. So developing solutions to at least one of the following focus areas. So either surveillance of conditions and medical or clinical practice guidelines, genomics for mishap investigations, studies for providing data to support evidence-based aerospace medicine standards, or some psychological health and performance knowledge product development. Again, most of these are looking at developing best clinical practice guidelines or optimizing the pipeline for product development within these fields. Okay, last topic. Focus area 4.5 is in-route care and expeditionary medicine. So this is, again, talking about care of patients between where they're injured and the Role 3 hospital that they are going to. Specifically, we're looking at the aerospace area. So we're looking at the ability to translate any of that en route care to what would be needed on airplanes or other aircraft. Okay, so that was the MPI. We do some other things at MTEC. So one of the things that we're also working on is a neurotrauma state of the technology meeting. It is going to be in Washington, D.C., March 12th and 13th. I'm happy to talk about this more should you want to discuss it, but definitely just feel free to reach out. And with that, I will start taking questions. But yeah, thank you everyone for listening and paying attention. Feel free to ask any questions within the Q&A function. And if you have questions beyond this webinar, definitely feel free to reach out to any of the points of contact that are listed here.
Thank you very much, Chuck, for this informative and interesting presentation. We do have a few questions in the Q&A function.
Yes, absolutely. So I can kind of run through some of these. For me, I'm going to probably start at the bottom of the questions and go up. So if you would like to, so the first question is, do you have to be a member to submit an application? You will have to be a member. The membership, for more information on how to join, you can see that website link down at the bottom. Again, membership fees are $1,000 per year, prorated by what calendar quarter you join. So I'm going to dismiss that. Can a single company submit more than one project? The answer is yes. So you're able to submit multiple proposals, but each proposal should be unique and distinct from any other proposal that you submit. If you have specifics, we can talk about that offline and I can go through some submission strategies for you. The next question is, what TRL, technology readiness level, is expected to be reached at the end of the project? So really, part of that is up to you. Generally, our awards see projects progressing 1 TRL during that period of performance, that first period of performance. So setting up tasks in order to achieve at least an increase in 1 TRL is an appropriate way to go about setting up a proposal. The next question, is it possible to consider an improved device for managing monthly bleeding for women soldiers as a form of treating wounds? That's a good question. I don't think that's necessarily going to be within scope. We can talk a little bit about it offline to make sure I have a full understanding of what the technology would be, or what the improvement you're trying to develop is. But really, we're looking at technologies that are aimed to be far forward applicable, definitely within wound treatment. We're talking about combat casualty care, so point of injury as best as possible. Next question that we have, is there any request for acute spinal cord injury treatment or regeneration of neurons? So that's definitely of interest to the military. We've seen some interest in that in the past. We don't have it. I don't think there's a really good fit for that within the MPI, but that doesn't mean that it's not going to be an interested, there won't be a solicitation for that in the future. Definitely within musculoskeletal injury, spinal cord injury is also relevant. So, definitely feel free to, follow us on either social media, or there's a link on our website on how to sign up for our mailing list to keep track of any future solicitations that we post. Question is, are you interested in brainwave solutions? So I think I'm going to definitely need a little bit more context on that. Definitely feel free to reach out. We can set up an offline meeting to kind of discuss that a little bit more in detail, but it's a very broad topic, brainwave solutions. Okay, the next question, is there a way to have a primary check of an idea to see if it's relevant? So, I mean, definitely what we're doing here, kind of discussing whether technologies are in scope or out of scope, we can definitely discuss that here. Definitely feel free to reach out to me myself. So my email again is chuck.huddy@ati.org. I'd be happy to take your questions and kind of talk about your technology a little bit more in detail. If I can't answer the question, I can always pass it along to the military sponsor to see whether they think it's in scope or not. Yeah. There's a question about the MTEC basket. So if the proposal is in the basket with an outstanding score, which is relevant to a relevant focus area, is there any point in resubmitting? So not necessarily. You can definitely revise. If you're in the basket already, you can revise your enhanced white paper and kind of send it to us so that we can inform the military sponsor that there has been a revision to that enhanced white paper that's in the basket, and kind of clue them into that. So definitely feel free to reach out to me so we can talk about further steps for that. There's a question about can a nonprofit organization such as a hospital submit a proposal, or how a nonprofit entity can collaborate on these? So yeah, so a nonprofit can definitely submit a proposal. There's no restriction on that. Again, feel free to reach out. We can talk about it a little bit more in detail offline. But there's also a lot of opportunity for collaboration. If you would like to do a majority of the work, but you have someone else that would be managing the award, working with another foundation or things like that, that could be a really helpful teaming situation. We've seen that happen and work well in the past as well. So definitely feel free to reach out, and we can talk a little bit about what you're thinking about for a proposal, or how we might be able to team you. So there's a question about what is the process for a stage 1 submission. So that's a great question. So really for the MPI, we are considering this a single stage effort. So if you look at the request for project proposals that's found on our website, it should include most of what you need for submitting a proposal. That includes the enhanced white paper template, as well as several additional addendums or appendices that you'll need to submit in order for the government sponsor to have a full grasp of your proposal. There's 6 documents that are required to submit for all proposals, and then there's some additional documents that are required for some specific either focus areas or depending on what kind of project you're doing. There's obviously an addendum about human research, should you be doing some studies for using humans. Once you have all of those forms and documents collected and filled out, you would submit them using the BIDS platform. I mentioned it before, kind of closer to the beginning of this, but it's an online secure cloud-based system where the government sponsors can log in and then evaluate your proposals there. Once you submit and your government sponsors evaluate, you'll be able to receive feedback through that BID system as well. Let me know if you are looking for a little bit more of an answer there, or feel free to reach out after this, and we can talk about the submission process in a little bit more detail. There's a question on, can a service provider with specific expertise join a project? We don't offer a technology, but expertise in human factors in medical devices and healthcare systems. So yeah, so those kind of providers are very useful to have as teaming partners. We've set up a teaming connect, but I'd be happy to kind of broadcast your capabilities. Why don't you send me an email after this and we can kind of talk about it in a little bit more detail. Is there an interest in harm monitoring of civilians in a war zone? That's a great question. Yes, there is interest. It's not particularly funded through the MTEC at this current stage. If you're able to develop a monitoring technology that would be military relevant, looking specifically at the military personnel alongside civilians, that could be of interest. Definitely, I'd be happy to talk about it a little bit more offline as well. There's a question about what help should be expected when FDA approval is needed. So that's a great question. So we do have some educational webinars on how to engage with the FDA. Really, what we've seen in the last couple of years, there's a large shift in the FDA wanting or being open to people engaging earlier and earlier. So definitely, reaching out to the FDA as quickly as possible could be helpful. We also have several members of the MCOR, that subject matter expert network, that do have some keen insights on how to interact with the FDA. So you could always reach out to those as well. And there's a unique page for them. I think it's in this slide deck, but we, definitely reach out to me if you have trouble finding it on our website. There's a question about, what about limb cryopreservation? That's an interesting topic. It might be within scope. I think it's probably not, but it might be. It kind of depends a little bit on how you're proposing it and what kind of development tasks you're going forward, and what focus area you are interested in. So definitely read through the request for project proposals and then let me know what focus areas you're thinking might be applicable. But we can kind of discuss that a little bit more offline with a bit more detail. There's a question about how much is MTEC membership. So again, that's $1,000 per year prorated by what calendar quarter you join. So right now it's $250, but in January it'd be $1,000 again. There's a question about, will MTEC or associate investors will request some ownership percentage for unreturned investments? That's a great question. Yeah, so there's definitely, we keep a keen mind about what IP is, and we want to make sure that you have control of any intellectual property that you're producing, both MTEC and the government. So MTEC does not have any stake in any of the contracts that are being made. We subsist off of two funding sources. The first is those membership fees, as I mentioned. The other one is an assessment fee. So we are able to we charge a 1.75% assessment fee for the government to help them craft the solicitation, get that posted publicly, have webinars like this, and then a 2% assessment fee from any awards that are made in order for us to be able to manage the awards on the back end, the contracting staff and things like that. So any awards that are made, there is a 2% assessment fee to MTEC, but there is no ownership over IP. Similarly, the government generally is not looking for ownership of any IP. They're looking for to help products get commercialized. They cannot normally be a sole source procurer of a technology, and so they're looking for it to have commercial applicability as well. So definitely, looking. Read through the solicitations, and each solicitation that we post, there are some times where, especially when it's talking about some IP or IT top products, where maybe it might be obtained by the government afterwards, but anything within the MPI is looking for you to control your IP so that you can develop it going forward. There's a question about this presentation being made available. I have no problem with this presentation being made available. I believe Shlomi and Yifat have the presentation as well, so we can definitely get that over to you after this meeting. Are MTEC interested in a biophysical method or medical device to predict early and prevent sudden cardiac arrest in asymptomatic individuals? I mean, that's definitely something that we would, I think, be interested in. I think we would have to meet a little bit offline to talk about the feasibility of that, and exactly what focus area that would be applicable to. I think probably the best case scenario is going to that our solicitations page, reading through the MPI, and seeing which focus areas you might align best with, depending on how you're developing your technology, and with a little bit more information, we can talk about that offline. There's a question about, are smaller, lighter devices for heated transfusions that replace larger devices that are currently Defense Logistic Agency limited source justifications? And do we need a U.S. entity or an Israeli entity for the MPI, or both? So for the first question, there might be some interest in heated transfusions. That would definitely fall within focus area 1.1. I will say that it is a pretty competitive area. Obviously, there's quite a broad range within focus area 1.1, blood and blood products. So definitely, I would recommend you read through that solicitation pretty clearly, and then reach out to me, and we can talk a little bit about it and some submission strategies. The second question is, do you need a U.S. entity or an Israeli entity identification, essentially, for the MPI? So we require a unique entity ID, and that's given out by you can find information on it from sam.gov. I can kind of, after the meeting, I can send a link to the group to kind of showcase where that some step-by-step instructions on how to get access to a unique entity ID. But that's really what you're looking for there. Okay, last question that I have listed. So this individual is in the process of obtaining that unique entity ID that I just mentioned. So I see. Okay, so while you're still waiting for your unique entity ID, you can definitely still apply to be a member of MTEC and gain access to that members-only website to get access to the proposal preparation guide and those additional templates. Most of the important templates are found within the RPP itself. The additional templates are just some not random. They are very specific, but they are relatively straightforward and simple documents and templates to fill out. If you don't have your UEI at the time of membership application, just say, we're in the process of getting it when you're filling that out that section. But then we can get you access to that members only website. 2 more questions. How many projects are expected to be funded? That's a great question. Part of that is going to depend on how much funding is actually appropriated to each of the program offices. As I mentioned, Congress has been a little bit delayed in getting that their budget finalized and approved. So we will have to wait a little bit to see what that funding amount is. I will say, again, generally, we're looking at projects that are funded at around the 2 to 3 million mark. For 2 to 3 years of a period of performance. I would highly recommend that you add rough order magnitude price tags to each of your tasks if you are interested in submitting for a proposal. That way, the government sponsor can look at that and say, oh, well, maybe there's 3 tasks listed here, A, B, and C at 1 million, 1 million, and 2 million. Maybe I don't have 4 million right now, but I could fund the first 2. And they can kind of negotiate with you after selection to see if you're amenable to adjusting your statement of work to only be the first 2 and decreasing the award amount from 4 million to 2 million and kind of rescoping the project that way. So definitely adding those rough order magnitude price tags can be very helpful. Can I elaborate on cost sharing? Do we present a budget and then mention what percentage we would share of the total budget? So yes. So you look in the enhanced white paper template, there is some line items for cost sharing and how much you'll be providing. Cost share is only required of traditional military contractors, so those that are subject to full cost accounting standards by the U.S. government. So I would think that most of the companies on this call are not required for that. If you are, it's a 1/3 cost share requirement. So thinking about how to get to do that is important. Or you need to have significant team members or team members doing a significant amount of work, and those team members should be non-traditionals. So again, most of us on the call probably are non-traditionals or nonprofits, and so cost share is not required for those organizations. Again, feel free to reach out to me individually or the MTEC contracts, and they can give a better overview of cost sharing. But before any of that, definitely read through the RPP because there is some definitions and some additional information there as well. I thought I was done. Last question.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Chuck.
Yeah. So will MTEC be interested in a medical device for a quick and safe insertion of chest tube to drain blood air from the chest trauma injuries? So that's definitely something that could be fit within traumatic or complex wound management. I would read through that focus area a little bit more in detail, and feel free to reach out should you have any specific questions. But yeah, with that, there are no more open questions, so I'm going to pass it back to you, Thought, to close us out.
Thank you so much, Chuck. We've reached to the end of this webinar, and we will spread out the presentation and other materials to you all. Thank you very much, and have a good day.
Yeah, thank you all for coming. Great talking with everyone.
Thank
Have
you.
a good day.